In the beginning, it was all woods. The deep, endless woods, just as thick and impassable as every Russian folk tale claims them to be. This is exactly where the ancient Russian capital Vladimir was built, in the middle of the famously impenetrable and treacherous Vladimirsky Forest. With no roads built around it, Vladimir could be reached only by the river Klazma. In summer by boats, and in winter by horses and sleds which traveled safely on the thick ice.
Расцветали яблони и груши, поплыли туманы над рекой. Выходила на берег Катюша, на высокий берег да крутой. Выходила на берег Катюша, на высокий берег да крутой. Выходила, песню заводила.
Today, Vladimir is easily reachable by highways and railways, but is still surrounded by lush forestry, dotted by gardens, and is full of flowers blooming in every square and street corner. Outgoing and outdoorsy, Vladimirans are a joyful people who like to enjoy life. An ancient Russian capital, Vladimir, has seen rises and falls, wars and victories, grieving and celebrations. Throughout its long life, it amassed a few funny historical mishaps, which Vladimir citizens like to tell the visitors about, starting with the city's very name. Originally a small settlement, Vladimir first became a city somewhere between the 10th and 12th century, when the Kievan Rus began to expand. The Kievan prince Vladimir decided to turn the secluded settlement into a city and gave it his own name. But exactly which Vladimir did it is less clear, because the young Russian kingdom had two princes with the same name who lived and ruled more than a century apart. One was Prince Vladimir the Red Sun, known as the country's christening father, responsible for turning Russia into a Christian state. The second was his great-grandson, Vladimir Monomach, a keen politician who grew and strengthened the Russian kingdom. Historians are still debating which Vladimir gave this city its name, pointing at various facts from the annals of history. During the Soviet times, the credit for founding our ancient Russian capital was bestowed on Prince Vladimir Monomach, and here's why. The Soviets viewed the religion as the opium of the masses. They banned prayers, prosecuted priests, and destroyed churches. They didn't favor Vladimir the Red Sun for his christening efforts, and so they decreed that the city was founded by Vladimir Monomach in the year 1108. In 1958, the Soviets pompously celebrated the city's 850th anniversary, an event commemorated in monuments, obelisks, and ironworks. But the big 900-year celebration planned in 2008 was less trumpeted because historians insisted the dates were wrong. Some historical facts strongly suggest that the older prince, Vladimir the Red Sun, founded this city in 990, meaning that our city is actually over 1,000 years old. So, we still don't know how old our city is. We're still awaiting the final verdict. Regardless of that, Vladimir became the ancient capital of Russia in 1157 and kept its elite status for 200 years, rivaling the old capital, Kiev, in its grandeur. Monomach's grandson, Andrei the Pious, built the city's most revered monument, now a UNESCO heritage site, the Golden Gates. As a fortress, Vladimir had several gates that allowed access to the city. To enter the city through the Golden Gates of Vladimir was an honor reserved for heroes and noblemen. The gold-plated gates shimmered in the sun so bright, people's eyes hurt. But where's the gold now, you ask? Nobody knows. The legend says the Golden Horde is to blame for the missing Golden Gates. The Mongolian Khan Batu dreamed of entering Vladimir through its famed entrance. But Batu's dream soured. When he got close, the citizens took the gold plates down and hid them so well, no one can find them to these days. The only golden part left is the dome. Andrei's brother, Vsevolod the Large Nest, named so for having 14 children, built one of the city's most beloved landmarks, the Cathedral of St. Demetrius. The cathedral's elaborate design, a classic form of Russian white stone carving art, is another topic of the never-ending historical debates. The legend states that the 1,500 fragments of the wall design tell a specific story, which one could read like a book. Unfortunately, after the sculptors died, no one remembered what the story was. Today, historians, priests, and architects are still trying to solve the mystery of the storytelling. One theory states it's simply a praise to the Lord. If you look up, you can see the biblical King David at the very top of the peaceful, harmonic world welcoming everyone, the rare plants and the exotic animals. But another side of the cathedral features armies battling each other, which is the anathema of peace. So this is another mystery of our city, for which we hope to get a resolution one day. Andrei the Pious also built the beautiful white stone Assumption Cathedral, the first iterations of which was so badly damaged by a fire that it became all black. The architects revived it by building new white walls around the old ones and adding more cupolas. And that's how the cathedral lasted to our days. It overlooks Vladimir's central square. And of course, there's a funny story about it. We call it the story of Lenin #2. The pedestal, placed in the square in the early 19th century, originally held a statue of Tsar Alexander II, the liberator, famous for abolishing serfdom in this country. But Alexander's statue didn't last long. After the revolution, the Soviets replaced him with the new leader, Vladimir Lenin. With his hand reaching out to the masses, the revolutionary hero was showing them the path to the new future. There was only one problem. Lenin's outreaching hand pointed directly across the square to the Assumption Cathedral. That was a terrible snafu. A leader of the international revolutionary movement couldn't possibly be sending people to a temple. So, the city administration took down Lenin #1 and promptly replaced it with Lenin #2. The second Lenin didn't point anywhere, but he left the citizens cold. People thought he looked confused and disappointed. Lenin #2 seems in a hurry to get away rather than lead the nation. Nowadays, Vladimir enjoys a spiritual revival, and the churches are no longer a stigma. Some churches are particularly favored. For example, the Church of Michael the Archangel, located in the area of the city called the Cold Mountain. This relatively new church was built in the 19th century by a retired military captain, Arkangelsky, who donated all his life savings to the construction. Somehow, Vladimir citizens feel a strong connection with this church, maybe because it was built by a regular person, rather than a prince. They flock here for weddings, christenings, and other happenings. Although recently restored and repainted, the church retained an old-fashioned 19th century look. That's why it's so favored by both the churchgoers and the art lovers. It makes people appreciate the antiquity of their old city. The church also has a Christian retreat, which welcomes pilgrims from all walks of life. As a pilgrim, you get a room and board. The priests will determine your prayer and penance, and you can stay as long as you need to thank the Lord. Surrounded by forests and fertile lands, Vladimir's citizens always embraced the outdoors and loved gardening. But cherry trees occupy a special place in their hearts. Their favorite pastime and also a profitable line of business was growing cherry gardens. Throughout the centuries, Vladimir farmers sold their harvest to Moscow and beyond. Today, a special cherry strain fittingly called Vladimirka is considered to be one of the best and most plentiful in the country. Vladimir's agricultural university keeps working on cultivating new strains, many of which grow here in the city's Patriarch Park. But more importantly, local brewers always make sweet cherry wines, ciders, and infusions from their plentiful harvests. In late summer, every household is packed with brewing jars of cherries, and every family has its own recipe. Another Vladimir sweet treat is the printed pryanik, a cross between a pie, a cake, and a gingerbread. Pryaniks were a popular treat in Russia for centuries. With various local recipes, pryaniks ranged from small lumps of honey sweet dough to large elaborate pies with printed designs and infusions with jams and jellies. Often, they were also painted to make them even more irresistible. Vladimir's printed pryaniks were famous for their beauty, creative designs, and festive colors. Vladimir's Pryanik Museum lets children and adults learn some of the old painting techniques. To make pryaniks, bakers used hand-carved boards, which transferred the design into the cake, which is where the name printed came from. The carvers and the bakers competed in creativity and design. Boards with new, previously unknown designs were valuable and expensive. People ordered custom-made pryanik boards for friends and family as gifts. Today, such custom-made printed pryaniks remain a favorite gift, valued more than a cake because they still require hand-carving the board first. A local pryanik factory in Vladimir has a board carver artist on site, ready to work with clients on custom-carved boards for any occasion. Today, Vladimir's pryaniks are called the city's most sweetest souvenirs, rivaled perhaps only by cherry wines, which many locals love a little bit too much. To this end, here is another Vladimir anecdote. In 1805, the city built its first apothecary, in which every medicine was made to order by hand. The pharmacists were effective at treating the sick, and people had a lot of faith in them. So the apothecary lasted to our days, only recently closing for renovations. To celebrate the apothecary's success, the city put up a statue of a pharmacist here, and immediately a new legend shaped around it. Look at the statue. Do you see something funny about it? Maybe the white nose? Well, the legend states that if you rub the pharmacist's nose, you'd get rid of your drinking problem. So figure, there are a lot of people who like their wine just a little too much. Whether this works or not is a different story. It's hard to believe that our people would actually give up their favorite treats because they like drinking, singing, and dancing. And nothing puts you in a singing mood faster than a glass of sweet cherry wine.
Расцветали яблони и груши, поплыли туманы над рекой. Выходила на берег Катюша, на высокий берег да крутой. Выходила на берег Катюша, на высокий берег да крутой. Выходила, песню заводила про степного сизого орла, про того, которого любила, про того, чьи письма берегла. Выходила на берег Катюша, на высокий берег на крутой.
Спасибо.